I've done 2 out of 3 videos in this series now, and it's time for the third. The grand finale, you could say. Anyways, this is the ultimate guide to gemstone mining. How to gemstone mine is probably one of, if not the most asked question in Hypixel Skyblock, and for good reason. Gemstone mining is insane. It's arguably the best money-making method for how consistent and accessible it is. Another thing to mention about mining as a whole is that it has one of the most intricate progressions in the entire game. With the plethora of different metas to choose from, you can really do whatever you want. With most methods having a really high skill ceiling, there is tons of room for optimizations and fine-tuning. Getting all of these optimizations and acquiring all of the gear is extremely gratifying, and it's my favorite part of the game. Anyways, with hypermax setups and really good efficiency, you can get around 50 mil an hour from Armadillo mining and 42 mil an hour from Ruby mining. I'm going to cover both of these methods in this video in a lot of detail, explaining routing and everything. I'll put timestamps in the description so you can skip to the method you want to use. I'm going to preface this video by saying the reason I won't mention Jade is because it's, well, kinda dead. Ruby and Armadillo surpass it by so much for money, it's simply not worth it anymore, even with the low setup times. Okay, so first I'm going to include a section about how pristine and mining fortune work for gemstones and mining speed in general. This section will get pretty nerdy, but I would recommend watching it just so you have the knowledge, as it helps you understand mining a lot more. Here's the equation for the average yield from mining a gemstone. The reason pristine is multiplied by 0.79 is to account for the one base drop replaced by a flawed. Using this equation, you can tell about how much money you'll make from every block broken, and is important for understanding how pristine and mining fortune work in relation to one another. For mining speed, the way it measures the time it takes for you to break a block is in ticks. A tick is a single loop in a game engine, and the tick rate in Minecraft should be 20 ticks per second, or TPS, where one tick is equal to 0.05 seconds. This means that whenever you gain mining speed from something, it might not even advance you a tick in breaking speed, depending on how good your setup is already. The mining speed you need to reach a certain tick on a certain block is dependent on its block strength. On the fandom wiki, under block strength, link in the description, there is an amazingly useful chart that tells you the block strength of everything and a calculator to see how much mining speed you need to reach a certain tick of breaking speed, and what tick you're at currently. It's super useful and I would highly recommend it. Make sure when you're inputting your mining speed to include gemstone specific buffs like the professional Heart of the Mountain perk, which is not affected by bow. I saved the easiest mining stat to understand for last. Mining fortune is a stat that increases the amount of drops you get when mining an ore. Every 1 mining fortune is a 1% chance for the base drop, or drops, to be multiplied, and every increment of 100 mining fortune guarantees another multiple of drops. Since the player is always guaranteed the base drop or drops of an ore, 100 mining fortune doubles the drops, 200 mining fortune triples the drops, 300 mining fortune quadruples the drops. You get the idea. With these 3 core statistics out of the way, let's get into what you came here for: gemstone mining. First off, we have ruby mining. Ruby mining takes advantage of the fact that every ore in the crystal hollows will always generate in the same place. Yes, this includes ores like coal. Using this knowledge, you can mark down coordinates of ruby veins. I'd recommend SkyTills for this, it is a great waypoints mod, that are close together, and route them so you can most efficiently mine them. I'll explain more about routes later, but for now, what biome should you be mining ruby in? Well, ruby is the only gemstone, besides jasper, but nobody likes jasper, that generates in every biome, including the magma fields. There's this pet called Bal that not only gives heat immunity so that you never die of heat while you're in the magma fields, but also boosts all of your stats, including mining stats, by plus 15% while you're in the magma fields. And since ruby generates in the magma fields, you'll want to mine it there to take advantage of Bal's pretty incredible stat boost. So once you have your spot, you'll want to go to the crystal hollows, then navigate to the ruby coordinates. If you're in a public spot, there's a decent chance that someone is already using the route, and you'll have to swap lobbies again. The route could also be impeded by a structure, basically deleting some of the veins. Because of the fact that with really popular public ruby spots, they're taken a lot of the time, I'd recommend using routes that have already been publicized but aren't that commonly used. This makes it so that you don't have to go through the effort of finding a private spot, but there also aren't many people contesting you. For this, I'd recommend DKMCC123's mining guide video, which has ruby coordinates listed in the description. Making this video will probably popularize them somewhat, but if I'm being honest, looking for ruby spots really isn't that bad. If you want to create your own route using a world download, I've linked a video by Dragoon Master 4 in my description, which has a world download for the magma fields in it. So now that you're at your spot and know how to find it, how should you set it up? Well, there are 3 different ways. I'm going to start with the first and the easiest. Simply start mining the ruby, not caring at all about clearing hardstone. Clearing out the hardstone will increase your efficiency by a lot because it gives you more room to teleport around between the veins, but if you're really pressed for time, say you've got only half an hour to play and you just spent 10 minutes logging on and finding the spot already, it's really not a bad idea. The second is actually clearing the hardstone. For this, the mole perk is actually pretty decent, so I'd recommend getting it to about level 51. Just make sure it doesn't take up a lot of your gemstone powder, or you'll make significantly less. Clearing the hardstone, as I said earlier, frees up a lot of space and allows you to easily teleport between veins with an aspect of the end or aspect of the void. It'll take a little bit, but is well worth it. The third is bombing. Some of you who have already gotten into gemstone mining somewhat will be very confused right now. What bombs do is that they clear a sphere of blocks in an 8-block radius, and the ones that usually respawn like mithril and gemstones, well, won't. As such, it's a super common method of griefing. If you bomb someone's veins, they won't respawn, basically rendering the spot useless. Now that I've told you how this works, though, I trust you won't be a toxic asshole and bomb everyone you see. Right? Anyways, the veins will only despawn if the bomb itself destroys them. So if you mine the veins and then bomb them, it'll clear out a massive area around the vein while still allowing it to respawn. Since it does destroy a large amount of area below the vein, you'll also want to put cobblestone platforms that you can teleport to and stand on so you don't fall off of it. This method of setting up a spot is by far the most effort, but has a huge payoff. If you have an aspect of the void with the ability to ether warp, it's especially good because you can teleport directly onto the cobblestone platforms with a single click. I would recommend creating another set of waypoints for the bombs alongside your current waypoints that look a bit like this. These waypoints will mark exactly where to use the bombs and which veins to mine on so that they don't destroy anything. One thing to note about bombs is that they will drop through whatever platform you place them on unless they have at least 3 blocks underneath them. So when you're bombing, make sure that it won't fall through the floor. Alright, now you have your spot, you know how to find it, and you know how to set it up. I'm going to tell you about gear now. For ruby mining, I would recommend at least 4 million of both types of powder. You should have around 200 million coins, this will vary a ton, from the powder grinding necessary for 4 million powder of both types. With this, I would buy full jaded sorrow armor, not recombobulated, with a perfect topaz gemstone in each universal slot, a flawless jade gemstone in each jade slot, and a flawless amber gemstone in each amber slot. For your actual mining item, you'll have an auspicious gemstone gauntlet with a perfect topaz gemstone, flawless jade gemstone, and flawless amber gemstone. You should also have fortune 4, efficiency 5, and pristine 5 on it. For your other pet, you'll obviously want a level 100 legendary battle pet with whatever pet item you want. You should also have a ring of power with a flawless jade gemstone and a flawless amber gemstone. For the other talismans, you'll want a jungle amulet, mineral talisman, and titanium ring. For your equipment, you'll want any epic rarity belt, any epic rarity necklace, an ancient cloak, and a vanquished glowstone gauntlet. All of these should have the glistening reforge. After this, the order I would upgrade my setup is recombobulate your gemstone gauntlet, recombobulate your sorrow, perfect jade gemstones in your sorrow and gauntlet, buy jaded recombobulated Devon armor with 3 out of 5 chambers unlocked in each piece. You should have 2 perfect jades and 1 perfect topaz in them. Sell your sorrow after you get this, obviously. Upgrade your ring of power to an artifact of power and put a perfect topaz in it. Get the final 2 chambers of your Devon armor and put flawless ambers in each slot. Buy a titanium artifact. Put a perfect amber into your gemstone gauntlet. Put 2 perfect ambers into each of your Devon pieces. Buy a titanium relic. Recombobulate your artifact of power. Put a perfect jade into your artifact of power. Put a perfect amber into your artifact of power. Buy a titanium drill DRX655 with all perfect gemstones, recombobulated, fortune 4, efficiency 5, pristine 5, a titanium infused fuel tank, and a sunnyside goblin omelet. Make sure to forge the titanium drill DRX655 from a titanium drill DRX355 to save like 50 million coins, and it only takes like 1.5 minutes to forge. Buy a ruby polished drill engine for your titanium drill DRX655. You can also forge these drill engines to save money, so I would highly recommend doing that. Sell your ruby polished drill engine for a sapphire polished drill engine. Sell your sapphire polished drill engine for an amber polished drill engine. Buy a second drill with a blue cheese goblin omelet, this will be explained later in the video. Buy a quick claw for your bow. Get all perfect gemstones in your artifacted power. Buy a gemstone fuel tank. Buy a Devon's alloy and forge with your current titanium drill DRX655 for a Devon's drill. Enjoy downtime while it's foraging, or do something else in the game for a while. Get efficiency 10 in your Devon's drill. Recombobulate all of your equipment. 10-star your vanquished glowstone gauntlet. Get a black belt or gill splash belt. I would only recommend going for the gill splash belt if you have really high ping. Otherwise, the dojo for the black belt is just better because the gill splash belt costs a good bit of coinage. Then, finally, the perfectly cut fuel tank. And now for the Heart of the Mountain setup you'll want. The tree you'll want to use will look something like this. I'm going to explain every perk that actually buffs your profits now. Mining speed 1. Pretty obvious, just buffs your mining speed. I'd split your mithril powder between this perk and mining fortune 1 after you've already maxed fortunate. Mining fortune 1. Same as mining speed 1, just gives a buff to your mining fortune. I said how much powder to put into this perk earlier when I talked about mining speed 1. Mining speed boost. The essential mining ability for almost every manual mining method, the boost it gives to your speed is incredibly powerful. Efficient miner. Enable this when you're digging out a spot so you can clear ores easily, then disable again when you're mining gemstones so it doesn't grief your profits. This is the last perk I would put mithril powder into besides titanium and sanium, which is literally useless for gemstones. Seasoned minemen, just an extra boost to mining experience, you can never have enough of that. I wouldn't put powder into this at all unless you've maxed every other mithril powder perk in this tree besides daily powder, titanium and sanium, and efficient miner, but even at level 1 it's pretty good. Mining madness. The free 50 fortune and mining speed this ability gives is pretty amazing. Mole. Mole is pretty obviously nice for clearing out routes, and I mentioned earlier that you'll want to put enough powder into it to get something decent like level 51. Professional. Professional obviously helps with mining gemstones faster, but the way you put powder into it is curious. I've put a list in the hashtag guides channel of my Discord, link in the description, of which order you should upgrade this perk in comparison to mining speed 2 to get the most mining speed out of your gemstone powder. If you don't want to join the Discord or don't really care that much, every 8 professional upgrades you do should cost about the same as one mining speed 1 upgrade. Mining speed 2, an insane upgrade to mining speed 1, giving double the speed. I'd recommend putting enough powder into this to get you to a good tick threshold, then putting the rest into mining fortune 2. No more than 60% of your total powder should go into either of these perks. The powder that goes into this perk should also go into professional, according to the optimal upgrades list I talked about earlier. Fortunate, an extremely cheap perk that gives a nice bonus to your mining fortune for gemstones. I'd recommend maxing this perk before using any of the rest of your mithril powder. One thing to note with this perk and others like it, gemstone or mithril specific stats will not show in your stat menu. They'll apply, but they just won't be shown anywhere. They aren't affected by BAL either, strangely. Mining Fortune 2. A good bonus to Mining Fortune. Sadly isn't as good as Mining Speed 2 though, because it doesn't double the Mining Fortune you get compared to Mining Fortune 1. It's still good though. As I said earlier, you should split your powder equally between this and your Mining Speed perks. The rest of the perks that I didn't list are utterly useless, and you shouldn't put powder into them until literally everything else is maxed. Alright, so now you have your Heart of the Mountain, powder splits, gear requirements, and you know how to set up your spot. So how should you mine it? One important thing that I don't really see many people doing is that you want the final block you mine of a vein to be the closest block to the place you need to ether warp to. So if you're mining a vein like the one being shown on screen, you'll want to end on this block so that you can easily ether warp to the next cobblestone platform. Another super important thing is that you should be aiming to mine only topaz on your mining speed boosts, as because there's a soft cap of 4 ticks per block until you can instantly mine, on your mining speed boost, unless you have low gear, it's still probably worth it then. You can mine ruby and topaz at the same speed. Since topaz sells for a lot more to the bazaar than ruby does to the NPC, this is great for money. Another thing is that if you're close enough to the next tick of breaking speed, then you should use heated instead of auspicious in your gauntlet or drill so that you can get to the next tick of breaking speed. The next tick is far more worth than the 8 fortune that auspicious gives. If heated won't advance you a tick and you don't need the speed that auspicious gives to stay in your current tick, then I'd actually recommend using refined. The reason for this is that the mining wisdom that refined gives is far more worth than the 8 mining fortune from auspicious. I'd still use refined even if you're already mining 60 because overflow is cool, but that's your call. Another small thing, you can craft your ruby gemstones with enchanted gold blocks into gemstone gauntlets, but it's only about 400k profit for gemstone gauntlet, and listing stuff in the auction house is pain. It does give good carpentry experience though, if you want that. One thing I haven't stressed until now is an aspect of the void with ether warp on it. Ether warping is extremely important for any mining method, and especially if you're bombing your ruby route. So definitely get that, pretty much as soon as possible. Finally, I'm sure some of you heard me talking about a blue cheese goblin omelet in the gear section and wondered what the hell that means. What a blue cheese goblin omelet does is it boosts all Heart of the Mountain level based perks by 1 level. This extends to abilities such as mining speed boost, which is buffed from plus 300% mining speed for 20 seconds to plus 400% mining speed for 25 seconds. By applying the blue cheese goblin omelet to any secondary drill, then swapping to it before activating the mining speed boost ability, you're still able to have the Sunnyside goblin omelet on your main drill, reaping the benefits of both modules. This works the same way as sword swapping, where the server is unable to update held item stats instantly, but does update drill module information instantly. So there's around a 1-second window where you can swap from your main drill to your secondary drill, activate mining speed boost, then back to main. Mining speed boost applies statically at the time of activation, so the level boosted mining speed boost is used instead of a normal one. Alright, now it's time for me to talk about armadillo mining. A lot of you probably know that I've already made a tutorial on armadillo mining, and therefore this section will be an expansion in that video, covering all of the intricacies I didn't talk about there. If you want this section to make any sense at all, I would highly recommend watching the armadillo tutorial before watching this section of the video. So the first thing to expand on from that video is the requirements to start armadillo mining. I would recommend 2 million powder of both types to start. The reason this is so much lower than ruby mining is because you don't have to put any powder at all into the Heart of the Mountain perks that give mining speed, only ones that give mining fortune. This also makes it so that you don't have to purchase any upgrades to do with speed, so not only does it require less powder, the setup is cheaper too. For the powder splits and Heart of the Mountain perks, it's literally the exact same as ruby, you just don't care about any perks that give you mining speed. Another thing to mention that I get asked a lot is how to most efficiently find structures. The sad answer is that there's no secret tip or anything, you just run around the Precursor Remnants tunnels as quickly as you can and pray for a structure. You can buy lobbies in the structure trading channel in my Discord as well if you want to, but a lot of the time they aren't listed super often, and for beginning miners can be quite expensive. If your RNG sucks though, I definitely recommend it. The final thing that was seriously glossed over in that video is routing. Armadillo routing is so unbelievably important, I cannot stress how much of a benefit it is. What a lot of beginners do is they look for an area with a good 3x3 grid of gemstone blocks, then go into the center of that 3x3 and mine down. For this method, you want to teleport to the center of the block you're going to mine from, since the armadillo will actually have an offset when you summon it. That's dependent on how far you are from the center of the block. If you teleport onto a block, you will be put exactly into the center of it. Since the armadillo will take energy when you're mining blocks below you, this method will run you out of energy very quickly if you're high efficiency. It's particularly popular with inexperienced miners because it's the easiest method, and they aren't efficient enough to run out of energy with it. Then, once you start running out of energy, you'll want to begin to energy preserve. Energy preserving is mining into veins from the side at certain spots, so your energy taken and gained over time will balance out. So, in specific spots you'll mine in from the side, and in others you'll mine from the top in the grid pattern. One thing that's key for mining in from the side is the armadillo offset, strangely. The armadillo offset, which sounds like a huge issue for your profits, is actually a good buff to rates. If you run up to a pain area in a vein like I'm showing on screen, and you summon your armadillo will clip into the vein, and if you're able to ride it fast enough, will take you with it. This is huge, it allows you to mine a ton of blocks essentially instantly. One downside of energy preserving is that since it takes 1 second for drill stats to update, this is why blue cheese swapping works, when you swap from your fishing rod to your drill, any blocks you mined in that 1 second will not have your drill stats applied. In some cases, you'll be mining a lot of blocks in that time frame. Overall, energy preserving is way better because if you're at even average efficiency, you'll be running out of energy going from the top and mining down. You want to find a good balance between the two, and when you do, your routing will really start to take off. Like ruby mining as well, I'd recommend ending the vein at the part that's the closest to the next vein. For the starter gear you want, this will be much cheaper than Ruby starter gear because you have less money from powder grinding. It should be full Sorrow with a flawless Topaz, flawless Jade, and no Amber because you don't need speed in each of the slots. For your tool, an auspicious Gemstone Gauntlet with a flawless Topaz, flawless Jade, and no Amber. You'll also want Fortune 4 and Pristine 5 in that Gemstone Gauntlet. A few of the talismans you'll want to get are the Mineral Talisman, Ring of Power with a flawless Jade in it, and Jungle Amulet. For your equipment, a glistening Vanquished Glowstone Gauntlet, and the rest of the 3 can be any epic rarity piece of equipment. For the pet, you'll obviously want an Armadillo. The interesting thing about this is that it can literally be a common Armadillo that's level 1 if you want it to. The Rolling Miner perk doesn't work with Pristine and thus is almost useless, and the level doesn't really buff the Armadillo at all. If you do want that minuscule buff, you can purchase the Epic Armadillo at any level. They're all really cheap though, so it doesn't matter much. Then, for the gear upgrades. Replace the flawless Topazes in your Sorrow Armor and Gemstone Gauntlet with perfect Topazes. Replace the flawless Jades in your Sorrow Armor and Gemstone Gauntlet with perfect Jades. Add the Jaded Reforged to your Sorrow Armor, recombobulate your Sorrow Armor, buy a glistening Ancient Cloak, buy Jaded recombobulated Devon Armor with 3 out of 5 chambers unlocked in each piece. You should have 2 perfect Jades and 1 perfect Topaz. Upgrade your Ring of Power to an Artifact of Power and put a perfect Topaz in it. Recombobulate your Artifact of Power. Put a perfect Jade into your Artifact of Power. Buy a Titanium Drill DRX655 with all perfect gemstones except for Ambers, recombobulated, Fortune 4, Pristine 5, a Titanium Infused Fuel Tank, and a Sunnyside Goblin Omelet. Buy a Ruby Polished Drill Engine for your Titanium Drill DRX655. Sell your Ruby Polished Drill Engine for a Sapphire Polished Drill Engine. Sell your Sapphire Polished Drill Engine for an Amber Polished Drill Engine. Buy a Quick Claw for your Armadillo. Get all perfect gemstones in your Artifact of Power. Buy a Gemstone Fuel Tank. Buy a Devon's Alloy and forge with your current Titanium Drill DRX655 for a Devon's Drill. Recombobulate all of your equipment. 10-star your Vanquished Glowstone Gauntlet. Get a Black Belt or Gill Splash Belt. Then, finally, the perfectly cut fuel tank. Alright, well, that should be it. Thank you so much for watching until the end, and I hope you enjoy gemstone mining. Just remember to not be toxic and grief people.